What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Strength Solutions Podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe, like, and put us on your notifications. Our website is strengthsolutionspodcast.com. Free blogs, free guides, and programs for purchase. Email strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com. I'm going to make this a little rhyme. We all Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Strength Solutions Podcast. All right, guys. What a wonderful, wonderful time.
It's been a week.
It has been. You know, Nathaniel's getting ready to leave me behind for 2 weeks.
Bon voyage.
So if y'all will realize there might not be 1 or 2 episodes. And then, it's a sad day. I'm going to have to borrow his pool when he's not there.
Anybody who's listening right now, please go to my pool. I need you to watch our farm.
Chickens, cats,
fish, everything in between.
And the garden.
Shit, I forgot about the garden.
Yeah, you cannot forget to feed the beasts of the garden.
They need help too,
They need a little love. I'm going to
go. They'll probably love it.
Oh my God, that spit is so good. So let's get into fitness. All right. And I actually want to talk about this because I was listening to a podcast and we're talking about complexities of the metabolism. And I know we're big proponents of calories in, calories out, right? Mm-hmm. But also we know there's complexities that actually make it harder or easier to store fat. And so this doctor and professor was talking about if you take someone who's on insulin, off insulin. So insulin is a byproduct, right, that happens in the body. And if it's present in fat cells, it allows you to uptake and store energy more.
Yes.
And so people who don't have insulin, that's why they're skinny.
Mm-hmm.
So he was talking about his whole class, if this is not present, therefore you don't gain any weight. Mm. And it's so true. Like, it's how efficient your body uses energy. And so I really want to just bring out, yes, calories in, calories out matter, but there's also other things to it too.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. It's complex. It's lifestyle, how often you work, right? Stress. Do you have kids? Are you doing a bunch of stuff like we are right now? It's like so many things going on. And yes, calories in, calories out will most likely, I'm going to say like 90% of the time, be the reason of whether or not you lose weight. But there are other situations and times that become difficult or make it harder to either gain or lose weight.
I'm going to give you a hormone profile one. Me personally, and then I saw pictures of this one client that was shown to me from a year ago to today, and I was like, holy shit. Having your blood work and hormone profile down really works.
Oh, yeah.
And I was told, like, hey, you look lighter, you look better. And I was like, I'm the same exact weight, just my body fat is not storing the same, and I'm building a little bit more muscle. So hormone profile actually matters. And I don't think enough people go to the doctor, get their blood work thoroughly done. And it's not just getting testosterone checked, but like your free testosterone, your T3 for women, reverse T3, get those things done correctly. And you'll be surprised in what happens. I mean, look at your body.
Yeah.
Changing the hormone profile.
Huge change. And it's like getting a full panel, even just like once a year, I bet would be a huge, it gives you like a map, right? An outline of kind of what needs to be improved, what can you change, what is maybe the, thing behind all the issues that you've been having or trying to figure out and stuff like that. How can you change that? But if you don't ever get one, you never know. Yeah. And so you can do things like take the supplements or multivitamin or whatever, but you can have a more efficient result if you get something done like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we got to think about like grass-fed versus conventionally, right? The fatty profile of the actual meat itself is completely different. That's why some people have easier time losing weight abroad or different, or they feel different as well when they go eat somewhere else in a different country.
Yeah.
How far is the fruit and vegetables from the actual origin of where it comes from? We know that nutrition has half-lives. The way it tastes actually has half-lives the further away from origin of picking.
Yeah.
And I think what else we need to talk about the metabolism is working out. This is what we specialize in. You can work out so much and slow your metabolism down because you're fighting against the body.
Yeah, it's funny because I still have I had a client the other day ask me a question, and she was talking about like some excess fat, and she was like, why is this here? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, is it because I don't do enough cardio? And I was like, no. I was like, no, that's not it. And I was like, I guess maybe you could say, oh, well, the cardio would help you lose more weight or whatever, but the fact of the matter is that it's so small, so minuscule in the realm of everything else. Like, it comes down to your diet and muscle mass, building that, getting the metabolism back up to where it probably should be, not doing things like cardio, right? Like you said, that's going to just slam your metabolism into the ground, right? Even though you might feel like you're working out super hard, you're sweating every day, you're working out 4 times a week, or you're going to all the classes and stuff, you might actually be doing the opposite of what you're trying to get done.
Yeah. And the metabolism is so interesting because with the process of building muscle, which I recently learned, there's this thing called coupling of ATP, right? So we have the transport chain, right, that they have, and you go through ATP, but you also could be using more energy and coupling them and while being steady and not moving, right? The transport chain is while moving. So that means you're using more ATP while just in a steady position.
Interesting.
And so bodybuilders would use, I think, a DNP.
Okay.
I think it's called, and they would like start sweating without moving. It's illegal,
shit.
right? They're crazy just to get the last little calories out and really lean out a little bit more. Would not do it. I think DNP is like in Dynamite and stuff like that.
Oh shit.
And it's one of those things that coupling of ATP, that means you're burning fuel without having to move. And so the transport chain is based off of movement. And so therefore that's what could speed up your metabolism. And they've done studies too, from my understanding, where if you look at muscle versus fat cells, the amount of ATP and oxygen needed for them is much greater in muscle versus fat.
Oh yeah.
A lot more measurable.
Huge.
And so that's why we're big proponents of strength training. We're just trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Just strength train, build as much muscle, and live a life that's less stressful. Learn how to like deal with it. Live a life that would get sleep, which would help the whole process, and try to stick to mostly whole foods. And I think if you do those simple things, you're going to make your metabolism work for you versus you working against your metabolism.
Yeah. You're going to be doing a lot better than.
No, there's certain cases, like we talked about hormones, check your hormones and stuff like that.
I think a large percentage of the population, though, if you just do that, you're going to get somewhere.
A large percentage. Yeah. But then there's people like me who've worked out for a long time and can't figure it out, or women in menopause. That's when hormone profile really matters.
Yeah.
And then we talk about calories in, calories out, but then there's studies like, this less acidic diet. I don't know if you read it.
Less acidic diet.
Yeah. And so like pretty much is like steak versus like eating a plant-based kind of diet.
Okay.
Because steak is a little bit more acidic.
Sure.
And I was trying to point out the acidity. But I was like, well, there's a lot less calories in plant-based foods if you're going to do it this route. And that's why they're losing weight.
That's so funny.
At a tremendous amount.
And it's like, I guess you can categorize it like that if it makes it, I don't know, easier for you to follow or something like that. But I've had so many conversations with people who are on diets or whatever, and they're like, oh, this one really works. And I'll sit there with them and I'm like, let's break it down. Okay. So what are you doing? Oh, I'm eating more plants. Okay. How many more calories is in normal food when you're eating a balanced diet, and I'm just saying all this, but it just breaks down to the end being one is just making you intake less calories over time than the other one was. And that's all that at the end of the day, kind of, again, like we were saying, really matters.
Yeah. And, it's so much that what really matters is if I'm married in China, I won't lose my property. Dude, you sent me that? I was like, whoa.
Yes, I've heard. So they're doing this in China. I heard there was another sort of like Asian country or something like that was going to start doing this as well.
You think it's diagonal that way or diagonal this way?
Just doing this just means it's somewhere else. But so at least in America, right? Or if you don't get like a prenuptial agreement or something like that, whenever you get divorced, there's a chance that your partner, most likely the woman, right, will get a large percentage of things that the man owns, right? Whether it's business, money, alimony, child support, whatever it is. Let's be real, right? The woman tends to win, quote unquote, win, right? In a lot of those situations. In China, they're enacting a law that says that they cannot lose property when ending a marriage, getting divorced, things like that. And, I think about it a lot, and I think if you didn't start the business together, if you didn't work together to, I don't know, buy a house or something like that, it does beg the question of like, is this deserved, to be taken like that from stuff? And then I'm saying all because I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, okay, well then it begs the question of like, so they can't take that, right? And then I think about stuff like, oh, the equality movement and things like that and all this stuff. And I'm like, shouldn't it then also work backwards if we were to keep it that way, right? Where the woman were to take property or money or something like that. Then why doesn't it work the other way too? I don't understand.
So I think there should be a complexity. I think it shouldn't be like, oh, this is what in favor of this and blah, blah, blah. I think, okay, if you started the business and then y'all get married.
You get divorced.
Then you get divorced.
Okay, 50%, right?
No.
Well, something simple like that, right?
Well, if they did it together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 50-50-ish, right? But you just got to figure it out, like the correct amount.
Yeah.
And what is 50-50? Like if he's still going to run the business mostly, maybe he takes most of the business, but you take property.
Yeah.
A little bit more of the property, a little bit more alimony, quote unquote.
You gotta find
the happy medium, right? That's simple. Like I think our scenario is like closer to that, right? With the women in our lives. Now, if somebody started it, somebody jumps in like 10 years later and this person's already established. At that point, I don't think you deserve 50-50. But if you take on the role of a stay-at-home mother and they don't allow you to work, then it should be, okay, this is how we're to divide to make sure you can get yourself going, give you years of service. Sounds like a thing, but
it's like
it's got to be more complexity than like this is the black and white law.
Yeah, because
and I think that's how everything should be.
Even if they aren't contributing directly to running the business, right? They don't work for you, or they're not the manager or co-owner or something like that.
But they're taking care of the child.
That's still part of it, right? Yeah. And so, it definitely is. I don't know if I 100% agree with the fact that they're just like, no, you get nothing no matter what.
I don't know. I don't ever agree with that.
Yeah, but it's like.
But let's say like I marry this guy, or pretend I'm a woman, right? I marry this guy and we've only been together 2 years.
Yeah.
Married. I didn't give up a lot in those 2 years and he's already established, and then I'm divorcing. And I think what it'll do, it'll prevent a woman not staying, or prevent a woman from like just gold digging.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That could be
but
a huge.
It could be like, hey,
reason.
Like you either got to be with them like 10 years or more to get something, or you're going to be willing to spend 10 years with this guy.
Yeah.
Miserable.
You can't just go and get married and then get divorced and then take half their shit and then leave and do it again.
But also, if he initiates it before 10 years, right, or something like that, you see, like this is where the nuance and complexities should be within the system.
I think no matter what, seeing something like this, it brings something to attention, right? Something that I think that a lot of people are like, oh, we shouldn't talk about that, or no, the woman just should get whatever, or the man should do this. But I think it's something that should be maybe a little revised or thought about, because a lot of people lose, and maybe they shouldn't.
Yeah, and just like if a man loses his job, he's more likely to divorce, and there's a 33% increase, so a third increase that they're more likely to get divorced if a man loses a job. If a woman loses a job in a relationship, there's no change.
Yeah. So, what they're saying is that if a guy loses their job, there's a higher than a 3% chance, right, that the woman will divorce him, right, is what they were saying. And I did see a good rebuttal. Yeah. Where someone was like, well, when you look at the statistics of a woman getting sick, right, the man is more likely to divorce her in a situation like that. And I think,
but how sick are we talking about? Like terminally ill?
I think it would have to be something like that. Yeah. It's not like, oh, you get a cold and you're like, fuck it, I'm
fuck
out.
That I'm out.
Yeah.
Amanda got a cold, I'm out.
I think it would have to be something like that. She was
complaining a little too much.
Which I think both situations are for that.
They're not comparable though.
Yeah, they
because
aren't.
One has death around the corner.
Yeah.
And then the other one was like, I could possibly turn this around. Just give me a sec.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because I was seeing some other comments where they were like, when a guy loses his job, that's one of the times where they need the most support from their partner, right? To not feel like a huge piece of shit, right? Or like, oh my God, I'm, because you lose that whole role of like provider, right?
Which is big to a lot of men.
It's huge to a lot of men, right? And to society and stuff like that. And so you start to think and get depressed and all this stuff. It's like, that's when a guy needs you the most. Now, you can argue the opposite too, where it's like, okay, when a woman is sick and dying, right? Or if anybody is, that's when they need their partner the most too, no matter what. But again, I think that just like the last one, I think it just begs a question, right? Like, why is this happening at all? Right? Like, why are guys getting divorced whenever they lose their job? That's not good, like
begs the question of like, why did the wife marry him in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
Was it only because he provided?
Yeah. And then it's like, and the same thing too. If a guy's leaving a girl once she gets, sick and is terminal or whatever it is, it's like, didn't you make some vows there that said specifically this thing? And so I think it just brings things to light where it's like, oh, we're seeing these statistics and it shows that something is wrong, right? Something isn't working out right. We're not valuing people for what we should be valuing them for. 33% is a lot, dude. That's a lot,
33 out of 100. So if 100 guys lose their job, a third of them are going to get divorced.
33 of them are going to get divorced. That's pretty concerning.
A sixth of them will be.
Yeah. And, and I can't remember the percentage it was for the women's thing, but I know it was something similar to that. And it's just like, what are we doing here? Why are we getting married? Why aren't we being there for our partners when they're going through something, tumultuous? I don't know.
And there's complexities, right? And so you don't know what their relationship was like before.
Yeah. This may have been the straw, right?
Maybe that person's always been an asshole and they tend to lose their job. That's that person.
Yeah,
tends to lose
that's
their job.
fair.
And there's tendencies that's a man who loses their job tends to be a certain way. And so that could be part of it too, right? And I think we forget these complexities. And just like we were talking about earlier, the complexity of metabolism, it's just more than one thing. And I think too many times we see things in one spectrum.
Yeah.
Like we assume, right? A lot of people have this Nobel Prize syndrome because they're so great at one thing, they're great at this other thing. And so like, for example, a lot of doctors are really smart, intelligent people, but they're horrible business people. And then they don't ask business people for help and they fail.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know, remember if I sent you this or that, or I did, but this guy, Dr. Johnson, I think his name is, and he was like, I like to do a 3-to-1 ratio to be pain-free for the shoulder. So that means for every one exercise you do frontal plank or for your chest or pushing movement, you need to do 3 pulling movements.
I've heard this. Yeah.
And I would say this is true, but untrue.
Yeah.
And the reason being is I could take a chest movement and work on the eccentric portion a little bit more to work on the opening end and help my back out more.
Yeah.
Right? Or I can do this true 3-to-1 and it will help out because I am using my back more than my chest.
I think this is a good point for someone who probably already has back pain or shoulder pain or whatever it is, right? If you already are dealing with those things, I think that running by this type of mantra type thing will probably help, right? I think for the general person, like you said, hey, you should probably be doing this no matter what in a certain way. Like, hey, if I'm doing my bench press, can I lock my shoulder blades right while I'm pressing? If I, can I use my lats while I'm engaging and doing all that stuff? Like everything should be working at the same time, so to speak. But I've heard this, like for every push, you should be doing 2 to 3 pulls, type thing or whatever. And then, like you said, it's like, is that even realistic? Like, do you have the time to be doing?
So if I do 3 chest exercises, I need to do 9 back exercises.
And then so now you have 12 exercises that you're doing that day.
Why can't I just
and all you've done is chest and back, so.
And why can't I just change one of my chest exercises to eccentric portion?
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing a chest fly, just work more on the eccentric slowing down and in the stretch position and then come up.
One of the ones that I like the most is like a chest fly on a cable because you can really kind of let it squeeze back as you pull through and then rotate it.
Calm down.
So you can get the 2 movements, right? Like kind of together. And so it's a good idea. I see where it's coming from. I think it's kind of niche. I think it just depends on who you are if you need to follow this specifically.
Yeah. And I think a big part of like shoulder pain, right? We forget about the ribs and how the ribs are connected.
Oh, yeah.
And then we forget about how it's a complex movement, right? With the shoulder because it's ball and socket. It's very loose.
Probably the most complex joint.
Well, yeah. I wouldn't go that far.
No, it definitely is the most.
Yeah, no, it's probably the most complex. But I think we need to like chill out on these simplified things, right?
Yeah.
And so I know we talked about Joel Seedman, and now he created an apology video for calling out another trainer because an athlete got injured, Tyrese Halliburton. And he was like, well, if he wasn't training like this and you did my 90-degree method. And it's kind of absurd that trainers think that their training method is what prevents injury. What prevents injury is being lucky sometimes.
Yeah.
Because honestly, you literally could do everything right in the training room and then you step the wrong way.
Yep.
Or because a lot of these basketball guys were creating why are more Achilles injuries happening in sports. And because dribble drives a lot more, so there's a lot more explosive and dunking kind of going on. There's a lot more false steps. Mm-hmm. So taking a step back to go forward and creating the degree of the like angle of the Achilles, more explosive. And so it's more complex. Like Tyrese Halliburton had a calf injury going into that game, and it was on the calf. The Achilles ruptured. To say it's because of someone's training is messed up. But he did create an apology video. But a lot of trainers did go after him.
Yeah, man. I mean, in general, it's like a tragic thing, right? And then you're like going to use it to sell your product, you know? Like that's on its own.
Low.
Is pretty low. Yeah. And then it's also like, how would you even know? What if you did train with you and you still got hurt? You know, then what are you going to blame? You have no idea. You cannot say that claim on any sort of foundation. You know? Yeah. Damn, that's a rough one, Joel.
Yeah. And I think even when we talk about to people, we're like, look, we're to try to fix whatever we can fix. But sometimes surgery is the best option.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe going to a chiropractor is the best option.
Just the way it is.
Sometimes a massage. Like maybe you need to just rest. I remember one person, they're like, my ribs are really hurting, and they've been doing the push-ups every day. And I was like, okay, you're doing the push-ups right because I want you to use ribs. But I need you to take 2 days or 3 days off.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I feel better. And I was like, you just need a time off. So it's a complex thing.
Not every injury is like world ending.
I don't know, man. I don't know. You sent me this awesome Instagram, and it was about the inner child, right?
Oh, yeah.
It said, this guy said, I grew up with a rageful, critical father. My wife, Belinda, walks in the door and says, Terry, you left the shoes in the middle of the floor again. Can you think of someone but yourself? After that, he said, I don't hear that as my adult wife. I'm 4 years old again. I'm being yelled at by my father, and I've got about 10 seconds of tolerance before a snap. And my adoptive child shows up fast, and I go straight into fight mode. Can't believe you're making such a big deal over my shoes. Now I'm criticizing her. Now, she had a critical father too. So now she's in her 4-year-old girl, listening to her dad scream, and her fighter kicks in. We're not Belinda and Terry. We're two adaptive children screaming at ghosts from our past. At that point, we sit down and have a beer because we're not fighting. Our trauma is. And until we wake up, it will keep doing the fighting for us.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people go through this problem where they let their inner child really take over their thoughts.
It's sad, right? And it's not even always just the child, but even other just like past experiences you've had, right? But in relationships or something. And I don't think that unless you like really sit and try to be introspective and think about what's going on, you never really let it go, you know? Mm-hmm. And like, I think he said a good thing where he's like, you're two children, right? You're two past people arguing with something that happened to you that doesn't even involve this other person. Mm-hmm. Yet here you are like pissed off at each other, you know? And probably so many couples go through this and don't even know, you know, for the longest time, I didn't even think about stuff like that, you know, oh, well, it's because, you know, this happened to me when I was young. You have no idea. Yeah.
You know, a lot of times I hear a lot of people talk, and because I've done a lot of growing myself, and I learned it. Like I wasn't adaptive when I was younger, but now I'm adaptive, you know, because I told you something off the air that happened in the podcast. I was like, it's no big deal. I'll just go do this.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't realize a lot of their problem stems from childhood. And it doesn't have to be like through therapy, but actually correcting the action in the moment.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not retrospectively thinking about like, I'm the child, But in that moment, being able to say, oh, I feel that child's coming on. Let me go fix this.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I can hear in people's voices when they talk about certain things.
Yeah.
There could even be a teenager right now or like young kids I've heard talk, and I can hear their voice quiver when they talk about something. And I'm like, oh shit, that meant something to them.
That was hard for them to say.
But they don't want to admit that means something to them. Because if they admit it, then they feel like a failure or something like that.
Then you have to accept it, right?
Yeah. And it's really interesting. We talk to people all the time. And I even feel it affects the way people train. People want to go so fast. And I was thinking about this the other day is everybody wants to go so fast. And when you're able to slow down, really feel the body and move as one unit before you start going fast is when you're actually to get into your body, which allows you to actually get stronger, get better. And sometimes that holds true in life too. Slow down a little bit, feel the moment, take a deep breath, and then act. Did I nail that or what?
Yeah, I got nothing, man.
Dude, I've been thinking about this so much.
Really
I mean,
one, man,
and I told you there was a moment today too that happened or off air, and I was just like, they just need to slow down.
Yeah.
If you just slow down a little bit, instead of wanting to do this, this, and this, and this, and just slow down a little bit, it's okay. And then learning who to be safe around. I think that's another thing is people don't have this like safety. Like I come home and it's safe. It's safe for my kids to talk to me about anything.
Right.
And a lot of people don't have that safety. I mean, is there a place you feel safe?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. Like
besides your toilet.
Yeah, that's where I usually go. Yeah, I mean, home is a safe place, right? Like hanging out with you is another one too. It's and I want my kids to feel like that also, because when I was younger, it was like home was always like tumultuous.
Well, you said
like,
kids.
Camille. Whoa.
I have a question.
You might get a knock on the door.
Take care of more than chickens.
Yeah. I'm gonna add it to the list. So also, I just found out I have another kid.
There's an embryo.
Yeah, we're gonna leave it behind though. So this is on y'all.
Whoops. You're about to get arrested for abortion in Texas. 6 months,
you want to have like
weeks.
that space, like for your kids to be able to come talk to you and stuff. Because I can imagine that you and I probably weren't super close to our parents in that way.
So I think we had different growing up.
Right? Yeah, well,
I think
true,
yours was like very chaotic and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think my parents did the best they could.
Yeah,
but also they were just surviving themselves. And I think retrospectively, as a child, I have to let that go.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people in our generation don't let that go because they were doing the best that they could do. And you got to grow up at some point and take responsibility of your actions.
Especially as you become a parent yourself, right? You kind of look back and you're like, oh shit, my parents didn't know what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah. And there's times I've heard of parents repeating what their parents do, but they think that they're doing something different, but their actions are the same.
Yeah.
And it's learning. That's where the retrospect happens. That's where taking that moment to breathe before you talk to your child.
Yeah. There's like 2 moments that have happened with my daughter that I remember specifically. I was pulling into like a Denny's or something like that.
You lost it.
And and I forgot what we were like talking about, but I was telling her to get out of the car or something. And she was like, why? Like there was a reason why she was asking why, but I wanted her to just get out of the car. And I said, because I said so. And I got out, and as soon as I got out and I closed the door, I was like, God damn it. And I walked around to her and I was like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Like, you were asking a question. I could have just answered you and you probably would have gotten out of the car the same way. But I had to stop and be like, God damn it, what am I doing? And there was another time where we were at HEB or something like that, walking around doing something. I think she, maybe wanted something and I didn't really want her to do it. Anyway, I can't remember what ended up happening, but I remember I said to her, I think I said something like, grow up, or I need you to be like, pretty much telling her like, stop acting like a child is what I said. And I remember she was like crying and she was like, but I am a kid. Cause she was like 4 or 5.
Oh my God.
And I was like, fuck. And I was like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have, pushed that on you. Like you're just trying to figure it out and whatever, but you got to stop, cause I know in the past, if it was like my parents, they would have been like, yeah, because I told you to and get out of the car and that's it.
And you got to realize like now that we're adults and if there's kids out there too, like if, your parents are going through their inner child too. They just don't know how to get out of their inner child.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's crazy. But when you feel like as good as I feel now, like and as like calm as I feel, even in moments where I feel like there is like I need to go. I don't make panic decisions anymore.
Yeah,
I don't make like
true.
let's just go do it.
Let's just whatever.
Yeah, just whatever happens, go with the flow. Going with the homies.
Gotta let it go.
All right. We got 2 studies. The first one is about drug cuts migraines in half by targeting brain pressure. A diabetes medication that lowers blood fluid pressure has cut monthly migraines days by more than half, according to a new European study of the Academy of Neurology. A common diabetes drug may be the next thing for migraine relief. In clinical study obese patients with chronic migraines who took a GLP-1, liraglutide. But I will tell you, there's a side effect to it that you might gain more fat cells to it. I just learned about that today too. Receptors against experience over 50% less headaches a day, a significantly improved daily function without meaningful weight loss. Researchers believe the drug's ability to lower brain fluid pressure is the key, potentially opening a completely new way to treat migraines. The effects were fast, sustained, and came with only mild side effects.
So migraines are interesting. I've known a few people who have like suffered from migraines, and it's different than having a bad headache. Okay. I want to specify that because when I've seen people suffer from migraines, I'm like, oh, this is different. This is like a serious thing. And I can see how much it like affect, like your whole day's gone. Yeah, it's done. Like you're not doing anything anymore. Now I don't really know what causes them. I don't really know if I've ever like looked into it. I'm sure there's a bunch of different, reasons people say that happens and stuff. This is interesting.
So this is how I read it. Okay. I don't think there's anything really special to it. Mm-hmm. Like I know they say within days and stuff like that. Well, I think what happens is you're on liraglutide, which is a GLP-1 receptor, which you are going to eat less.
Yeah.
And they're like no meaningful weight loss. They did lose weight in the study. The thing is, when you eat less, there's going to be less inflammation. And these are obese patients who need less calories. So therefore, it's more likely to cause less inflammation. Therefore, you're less likely to get a migraine.
You're probably also eating less.
It's like a downstream
processed food. Right. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like causation doesn't necessarily mean correlation. Right. But interesting. All of these medications, these GLP-1s are really shaking things up.
GLP-1s are brain-derived drugs, pretty much. Right. And then I think at the dosages that they have for like Ozempic, Wegovy and stuff like that, are not the best dosage for a person. And I was listening to this doctor talk about it. He's like, the people who are best for GLP-1s, there's certain people, you could do studies where if you eat carbohydrates, people like this, and they feel full after eating pasta, they most likely don't have a GLP-1 problem. Now, if it's someone like me who can eat bread and pasta and then not feel full, I probably need a GLP-1.
Interesting.
Right? Because the GLP-1 has to do with insulin sensitivity and how your insulin raises.
And we just talked about that at the beginning.
So, yeah. Because there are certain people, and what he was talking about how to use it was like use it for 2 or 3 months. You cycle back off, see if you've learned how to eat properly. And does your GLP-1 receptors actually adapt a little bit better and stuff like that. He said that's probably the proper way to use it.
Need that going to England, man. It'll be a lot of bread.
Well, they don't eat at all.
Yeah. I'll be smoking a lot of cigarettes. That's obvious.
And some beer.
Yeah.
All right. Study number 2, fitness trackers are failing millions. This fix could change everything. So in the study, fitness trackers often failed people with obesity by underestimating energy burn, leading to discouraged results and misguided health data. A scientist frustrated experienced the exercise class with his mother-in-law, where her effort was reflected on the fitness leaderboard, sparked a breakthrough. His team at Northwestern developed a new open source smartwatch algorithm that accurately captures energy expenditure for individuals with obesity, rivaling gold standard lab equipment and paving the way for more inclusive, empowering health tracking.
Interesting. I mean, this is a huge problem with fitness trackers, that we've talked about in the past, where it's like, hey, even if it says you burnt 1,000 calories or whatever, you most likely didn't. And then even more so for people who are obese, right? Because their energy expenditure is going to be much different than someone who isn't obese, or even than someone that just works out or does anything. So I can see how this is huge. It would be helpful.
So I'm going to go counter to it. And you really don't lose weight from working out. And I think that's the number one issue. That's
true.
The problem.
That's true.
I don't care what you burn. It's what you put in your mouth.
Yep.
And yes, you use it as a source to help, like, as you get lower and lower to burn more calories, but it's about the consistency at which you eat is the big deal. And I think too many times we rely on fitness trackers for our workouts. They're great. They tell you how much you burn. They tell you like how many steps you do. That could be vital in like how many calories you burn throughout your day and make sure you're hitting enough steps just for health purposes.
I wonder
your heart rate variability is great for it. But at the end of the day, you got to build a relationship with fitness and health.
I wonder if this getting better accuracy, right? Like, let's say it does start showing that, hey, your whole 1 hour workout was 100 calories. You know, I wonder if it would make people go like, oh, what the hell? Like, this isn't worth it then. Well, you know, I need to do something different, or I need to pay more attention to my food. I don't care how
accurate something is. If you don't create a behavior, just like, okay, I could go for the business and we could just talk about, oh, these are the ideas I have. I can come up with all the ideas I want. If I don't take action, apply the behavior, it's never going to change. And at the end of the day, we're human and behaviors actually matter.
That's the big thing.
All right, guys, if you like what we're doing, we're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe, like, hit the notifications button so that we show up. Website, strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com or strengthsolutionspodcast.com. Strengthsolutionspodcast@gmail.com is for future fitness questions. You want us to answer anything, we can put it at the top there. Social media, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, Strength Solutions Podcast. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Deuces.